All right. Okay, so the first big thing, obviously, is mindset. Russ and I are going to give you as much gold today whilst going reasonably quickly. If there's anything that you guys want to dig in, this is going to be recorded. Sing out with your questions. Today, we're going to cover off variations, the process to go through, mindset, checklist, clauses that you need in your agreements, how to brief the foreman, invoicing on a regular basis, hooks to look out for, inclusions, exclusions. What else would you say, Russ? Basically anything you can think of.
Yeah, anything we think of. We'll probably think of some stuff on the way.
Some people think of VOs as either good or negative, or, you know, pain maybe at the end of the job, or holds up work, or wasted time quoting only for them not to follow through, or a great way to keep your clients happy, make more money, and yeah, if you've got a good system, then that's going to make your life a truckload easier. So the first thing is, what actually constitutes a variation? Mr. Russell Clark.
One of the key things before that, Marty, is the mindset of a variation, of course, as well. So of actually getting your mindset right. You know, I've had a few people go, oh, we can't charge for this, we can't charge for that. Why not? If you walk into any other business, I'll charge for whatever you buy, you know. And basically, variations is someone buying off you, or choosing to buy off you. So what is a variation? So a variation is a few variations. So a client adds something on. So a client decides, you know, it's not in the plans, it's not in your contract, more importantly. It may be in your plans, but more importantly, it may be not in your contract. It might be exclusion in your contract. So anything that's not in your contract becomes a variation if the clients wish to do it.
Right.
So there'll be a variation where a client might say, hey, look, can you tile the bathroom wall now? Yeah, sure. And then that becomes a variation. Or you might get a variation where it's not in the plan, or the plan differs to what's actually on site. And obviously with renovations, that occurs very frequently. So that's a variation as well.
Sure. And particularly the inclusions and the exclusions, critical things to look at. And
sets you up for the variation. You know, sometimes we'll go to jobs and the architect's drawn a plan, for example, and there'll be something, you know, because we're regarded as a specialist, we're the experts, so we should know our stuff. It may not be in the plan, but we'll talk about it later about preempting a variation.
All right. So top 5 mistakes that we see. Number 1 is the mindset around that, and not positioning up front with the client how variations are going to be processed, how they're going to be dealt with, that you're going to invoice them weekly, that you want to set a minimum amount that maybe if it's under $500, and you'll go ahead with it because it won't impede work. And also that if you're happy to do variations or change orders, but if they don't go ahead with it, then you're going to still give them invoice them for an admin fee of maybe $200 or $250, because you might have to ring around the sub-trades, ring 3 different merchants, all for just finding a small variation. So big thing there is position it up front, have the agreement in the contract and the clauses in your contract, and we're going to give you the variations clauses at the end of this. Number 2 is lack of a process and lack of a checklist. So do you have a process that you go through step by step by step? Is your foreman briefed on exactly what constitutes a variation, and what do you do differently if it comes from the architect? Number 3 is invoicing at the end of the job and it being a nasty surprise for the clients, as opposed to invoicing it weekly or on a regular basis, which is going to reduce any weird concerns between you and the client. Number 4 is not having an admin fee. And number 5 is not briefing the foreman adequately at the beginning of the job. They're the 5 that I commonly hear about. What do you got, Russ?
No, that's good points, Marty. And I suppose the big thing is not knowing your scope. It's a key point. It's a big mistake. If you don't know the scope, you don't know the variation.
So who has to know the scope?
Your foreman on site. It's really imperative that he knows the scope. Mm-hmm. Not charging for variations. I've often heard that people, I can't charge them for that, you know. But you gotta charge, otherwise you'll go broke. Simple as that. You're doing work for free. Otherwise, if you don't want to charge for variations, you guys can all come and work for me. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So, not having a process. You've got to have a process, and that process goes right back to the early stage, because the variation has to be in an early stage sales process, because it's really important. Everyone knows that there'll be variations in building. It's common knowledge there'll be variations. So add that as a highlight. Add that in your sales package, because people ask, what do you do for variations? What do you do for changes? Is this price guaranteed? And then that's when you'll talk about your variation process.
Yeah.
And also not fully understanding your variations, what the impact is to your business. You know, that's probably a big mistake of actually not knowing the implications of your business. So when you, I don't know, someone might decide, hey, we'll change the carpet or something like that, and that's a low margin profit for you, you know, and if they don't pay you, or that's part of your retentions, or you don't get paid, it can really impact your cash flow by doing a variation. So sometimes you might decide not to do that variation. You might say, look, here's my carpet guy's number, give him a call, for example. So,
so you don't have to accept or take every variation.
Absolutely not. You're only doing a variation if you it's going to be profitable to your business.
Right. So preempting a variation. I guess one of the key things when you're providing value is to have a look at where are these variations most likely to happen? Is there a particular area or stage during the build? And what are your top tips on how to go about preempting a variation, Russ, and why would you do that?
I suppose I'm only really involved with the renovations, but I presume, you know, on the early stages, you know, when you're out of the ground, you're digging, you might hit rock, the soil's different, all those sort of, the early stages, generally most variations happen in the early stages. The most changes to plan, what's actually on the plan, what actually is on site and what you have to build is generally the early stages. As it gets later on the job, that's when your clients start going, they see the house forming and they go, oh, you know, could we do this, do that? So the more the visual stuff that the clients like as in a wish list generally happens later on the job.
What do you see as the most common things where, can you give me an example? What was the last one or two that you preempted?
That I've just said, okay, so for example, I've just priced a renovation and had a brand new ensuite, etc. But there was nowhere in the plans that talked about upgrading the hot water cylinder.
Sure.
So when my plumber comes to site, it's like, hey, we're going to have to upgrade the hot water cylinder, for example, but it's not in the plan to do it. So we'll preempt the variation in our initial quote, saying,
So I guess when you go to see the client as well, this is a fantastic opportunity to display your knowledge, charge for quotes, and show how potential. And also you can play the card that, hey, a lot of companies will come in at a lower rate or a reduced scope of works, and that's how they make their money, by basically being a variations company. Whereas,
absolutely. So having preempting those variations or giving people options, because people don't know what they don't know. Yeah. So for example, a skylight, you can have a skylight, a VLUX skylight, but you can also get one with a rain sensor.
Really?
So when it rains, it will close. You get this, you know. So the key for us in sales is actually to know your products, know what's out there, and we always have to upskill ourselves, and that's probably a big mistake of a lot of us. Don't actually upskill ourselves. Yeah. You know, we tend to tick the building, but not sales as its own skill in itself.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing that we didn't actually talk about, the mindset that it is a sales process on, you know, who's actually selling the variation as you're doing it. So when you're talking with the client, obviously a big key thing is to position the variations in advance. You're happy to do them. If they don't go ahead, you will charge an admin fee because of all the running around, pricing up, contact with subbies, communication required. If they are under a certain amount, what is that amount for your company that you're happy to proceed with, and what amount do you need sign off with?
One of the big things that with preempting the variation is that when you come to do the variation, the clients always say, oh yeah, hey, no, that's cool, you warned us about that, it may happen. You know, and it may be like we may hit rock. So most times you dig a drive, we'll give you a quote, it will exclude rock.
Yeah.
So you might be saying to the client, hey, look, you know, we're in Mount Eden here, it's a really rocky area. Chances are we may hit rock. Great. Yeah. We'll put a contingency aside for that potentially.
Yeah.
And once you hit rock, it's like, hey, we've hit rock.
Yeah.
You know, but it's tagged out. You've tagged out in your contract. It's under your exclusions, but you've preempted them what may happen. You know, so it's really important.
Yeah. So I guess client communication. They also need to understand the pricing process, the sign-off process, how the variations will be priced up, and that's a big one. Obviously, depending whether you're doing charge up or a fixed price contract. Are you going to, do them at the same rate as the contract price, or are you going to do them at a different rate?
Oh, generally a little bit. Well, generally, if you've got a fixed price contract, more than likely you haven't put your hourly rates in there. So then you can put your hourly rates in there. Generally, you're doing retail. I mean, you're not. It's not like they're going to go down the road and grab another builder to do that variation.
Yeah, that's right.
But and also, it does impact on you. Doing a variation can impact on if you don't charge it fully. if you're doing a fixed price, that's fine. Your QS or whoever prices it will have all those things in there.
Yep.
Another thing too is about client communication. Who's involved in variation? Is an architect also involved in variation? Because that often happens as well. So it's not just your builder hates to do a variation. A lot of times it's the architect. If we're doing a renovation and the architect's made a mistake or something's not quite right, we will generally contact the architect first, discuss it with him, rather than blindside the architect. Well, let's face it, we're trying to get our preferred architects onto their jobs. We've probably recommended the architect, so we're trying to nurture the architect as well, but also obviously, not to our own detriment, but give them the heads up of what's happened, so we can get involvement. Because if yourself and the architect are talking about a variation, for example, if you're both sitting on the same page, it's a lot easier to get through and a lot less stressful. Let them take some of the responsibility for having the plans and adequate.
100%. Which brings us
I've
to...
got a question.
Certainly,
So
if you
when you
raise your hand. G'day,
So
Greg.
hello, when you my concern is that you start bombarding them too early about this is how variations work with our company. We charge you an admin fee even if you go ahead. I would imagine that you have this conversation after you've got the tick of approval that yes, we've appointed you as our builder. Is that how you would work it, or do you have that conversation early? Because I'm just concerned that you scare them off.
Oh, I just have the conversation early because it's going to happen, but what we're going to try and do is preempt any variations that may happen. We're going to work with yourself and the architect as to what happens. So you might make it really clear. So obviously they need to know the variation, if it's an architectural variation or their own variation because they think it was changing their mind. So if that's the case, you want to work with them at the early stage, even at the prelim budget stage, to try and get them to tick their boxes, to make their decisions and make their choices. So you minimise those. But having the process is fine because but you're just being professional. It's a professional process. You're not choosing to do a variation. They've paid an architect $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to draw plans that don't match what's on site. They've decided that they want to have a bathroom wall tiled now. Nothing to do with you. So this is just how the process, how you capture the information and charge for it. So there's no problem doing it early. You just have the confidence and belief in doing it. It's like for many years we've done free quotes. And the architect, I got one the other day. The architect sent me out for a free quote. I said, no, don't do that. Sorry, and I bet you haven't done your plans for free either, type thing. So have belief. We're professional builders. We're professional building companies. We have to lift our game, I suppose, and lift our mindset, as Marty said, and charge. But having the process is very easy. I've never lost a job because I've got a variation process. Most people like the fact that we've got a variation process because they want to know, as opposed to just a random invoice coming because someone's done something. They want to know it is actually a process. But the bottom line I'll say to my clients is that nothing will happen until you sign it off. So nothing can happen until they've approved and signed it off anyway.
Yeah. And nobody likes surprises.
No.
Unless it's Christmas or your 7-year-old son has just lost a tooth last night.
But they're having the process. Once the process is done, and you can make the process nice with all your marketing and stuff. It doesn't have to be a big black prison sentence process. It's a variation. But it's like I say, that's where that preempting the variation is very important.
Like this is Russ's. We'll make this pretty and we'll put this in the documents for you as well. So you can version it for your business. So then you show the clients. And when variations do arise, and we're happy to cater for them, here's how we'll proceed with them. Cool. All right. Anything else on foreman, client, architects, where the variations come from, how to deal with them?
Quick question. Yep, Scott.
Yes.
So your fee, the administration fee you charge for each variation, does that vary depending on the size of the variation, how much work you've got to put into working it out for the client?
I don't personally charge a fee as such, but what I probably do actually, but it's generally tied up inside the variation.
Sure.
So we do it that way. So, like I say, we've got a pretty good process. I don't have a set, hey, by the way, every variation is $100, $200, $300.
Okay.
I know there's people at TPB that do, and that works really successfully for them.
Sure.
I just put my fee inside it generally.
Yeah, great.
But,
Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which way you do it, whatever works for you. But
yeah, for the ones that go ahead, you might include an admin or an overhead fee within that.
Okay.
and the second one is that for the ones that don't go ahead, you might include a admin fee if they don't proceed of $250 or some nominal fee, because if you get 10 of those, you might have to spend 20 to 40 hours running around for stuff that they decide not to go ahead with.
I suppose for our company and what we do in our QS, we're pretty good at it and we don't let a thing slide. So over years of experience of doing it, so we know that every renovation we do, we'll get a renovation, we'll get a variation. So we cover ourselves that way. But if I was absolutely, I suppose, learning the process green, absolutely, I'd have a set rate for it, 100%.
And have that checklist, your sign-off sheet.
Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Anything else on foreman, client, architects, where they come from, dealing with them? No, we're good. All right. Briefing the foreman. So obviously you need to brief the foreman at the beginning on the scope of works, what likely variations there are, how to deal with the client, because they're going to be on site 90% of the time, and you may or may not be on site. So quite often they're going to have the client coming up to them going, hey, what do you reckon about we do this, or we move this window, or we put this wall here, or we do whatever. So it's critical importance that not only do they know how to deal with client, but they're actually putting in their forecast versus their actual hours. So when they give you their timesheets at the end of each day, they're filling that out versus the scope of works on what do they actually do. Like, does it, and you might pull up a variation that way, like, holy shit, what did you spend 4 hours doing that for?
Yeah, the foreman's key, you know, like, and how often have you gone to a job and he's done something, you go, what, that wasn't in the scope. So
so he should be incentivized to catch them as well.
Absolutely. So our foremen are, you know, with their incentives in there, because we do a bonus system for our foremen. So that's all part of it. So they're very, if they can capture a variation, well, main thing is not even capturing it, it's not doing it, you know, and
be aware of it.
Be aware of it. And what happens is, of course, the client will come up to what the biggest problem becomes is that the foreman, for my job, a lot of the clients are living on site will see the foreman every other day. The foreman becomes their best friend and starts doing stuff, and the foreman hears the life story of the client. Oh, yeah, it's a massive renovation, we're all a bit skint, blah, blah, blah. So the foreman starts doing work for them, and it could be anything for no charging. Yeah, and that's probably your biggest issue of actually briefing your foreman, the importance of the variation, and also the fact that he's working for you. You know, you're the boss, he's working for you, you're paying his wages. And just reiterating that. And that's by having your toolbox meetings and your monthly, if you do monthly meetings with your group, just reiterating that. Because variations are a huge loss for us if we don't collect them.
100%. Process map. Now, you should each have a process that you go through. Here's Russ's one. We will version this, make this look pretty, and put this as a document. And you also need a checklist that you go through. What have you got to say about, I guess, process?
Oh, just having a process is.
What do you know?
Yeah, having a process is key. Now, some people won't have project managers. Some people may not have QS. You know, but you just do a process that's right for you. So you know, something is better than nothing. So it's having a process. It might be very simple. It might be a few words in each box. Hey, we're going to capture the variation. We're going to
use this form within 48 hours to get sent to the QS, even if you're the QS.
Yeah.
Site manager or whoever the project manager is presents it to the client once they've got the prospect from the subtrades, but it needs to be documented, and ideally people tick off their section each time.
And if you see the last box here, it's quite important. No documented variation is perceived without client sign-off and their clear understanding of the nature, scale, impact, and reasons for the variation. And that's really important.
And that should be a big selling point in your sales process as well, on your website and your info pack, etc. If we'll just stop for a second, what's everyone's biggest golden nugget or realization so far?
I just got a quick question, but yeah, lots of nuggets in there. But how do you deal with an architect who wants a full-on open book variation? Says, well, where's the quote for that? You know, like if you got estimating software, like for example, they say to you, I want an extra 10 meters of tiles. Like, well, you're not going to get a tiler to quote that. You already know what your meter rates are. So how do you find? Because I just find that with architects, they're like, well, where's the quotes for that? Or we want to see the quotes. They believe it should be an open book. and then the margin is clear as day.
So, for example, you'd have your quote for the tile, then you have your time, you have floor protection, there'll be insurances, Portaloo, extras. It's not just that little bit that is your variation.
Yeah.
So one of the big key things, Greg, is actually that relationship with you and your architect.
You don't make it adversarial.
Yeah. So
the key is to figure out, great, well, for me to do that, it's going to take me an hour for writing up each one each night. When you want that done, we're going to be putting in overhead recovery margin. We're going to be putting in project management fee. We're going to be putting in extension of overheads. So for Jumbo Bin, if Jumbo Bin needs to be on site longer, if we need Portaloos on site, if we need to extend our contract works, So this is going to become very expensive for us to do that, but we're happy to do it.
Yeah, and you get it.
They seem to think
invoicing, there's admin, there's all sorts.
Yeah, they just seem to have this thing in their head that, well, no, if there's additional work, where's all the quotes from all your sub-trades when I'm the one who quotes it? And then I put margin on top of that. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not going to go and get a tiler to give me a quote for 10 square metres when I know what his metre rates are.
So I'd go right down and put that in your process at the start.
Yeah.
What's your process? So
exactly.
So the architect knows, my process for variations. I'm not going to sit there and get 10 different subbies in. I know the square metre rate. I've got this, and this. This is what it'll be. And own it.
Yeah, positioned at the beginning, and if it's a larger one that does require it, you will go out and talk to them, and obviously get a specialist quote from it.
Yep.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, mate.
So could you put like a dollar amount? Say if it's $100,000 variation, I get no quotes. I just give you a rate. If it's over $1,000. If it's over $1,000, you could then say, well, then I'll get some quotes or whatever dollar figure you want. Would that make sense?
No.
No?
Well, what if you have some real foreign LED fancy light that's $800 that you need to get a quote on? I don't know. I'm just thinking if you got something's really weird or wacky that you need a quote on. I don't know. But what you might do is get them to send you an estimate, a retail estimate, because all they want is paperwork. It's not a fixed price quote because you haven't engaged them yet. But you want a costing of this product, and then you'll go ideally get a discount off it.
Okay.
And ideally, you will have your office manager / project manager / QS do the running round to get this.
Cool.
All right, number one golden nugget so far. All right, Frank, what's your number one golden nugget so far?
Realisation of the importance of allowances in the original scope, and sitting down with the client and going through what provisions have been made for the job.
Awesome.
That's huge for us, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, my man. All right, who haven't we heard from here so far? Lynn. Hello, Lynn. How are you?
I've actually been...
Oh, we've got two Lynns. Lynn number one. Lynn and Ash. Hello.
Hello. I've actually been introducing this more since we did the summit and since we had the talk on it then. And I found it's gone down really well with the client. I've been starting to make it clear up front on my website and on the quote that any variations will be written down and need to be signed off. And that's just gone down really well in the last couple of weeks. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no surprises, eh? Communicate with the client, let them know the expectation, gets rid of any weirdness or uneasiness.
Yeah, and it's not sort of saving that till the end till you hit them with a big bill. It also means that I'm also getting paid for it as it gets done, which is fantastic.
Exactly. Awesome. Yes. Thanks, Lynn.
No worries.
All right, Lynn number 2. Hello, Lynn. How's it going?
Good, thank you. Very new to this, so the nugget for me is actually listening to what's going on here.
Yeah.
But recognising the variations and charging them.
Yeah, damn straight.
Yeah.
Someone's going to pay for it. It's either going to be you with your time, or you paying your guys, or the client getting something for free.
Yeah, totally. Example, went to the shop this morning. They said, "Oh, would you like a paper bag?" Yeah, sure. 20 cents. It's like, yeah, they hit you everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
So
thanks,
to do that.
Awesome. Cheers, dude.
Thank you.
Dean, come in. How are you, my man? What's up, bro?
You hear me?
I hear you, loud and clear. What's your golden nugget so far?
I reckon having a variations list to hand. before the renos complete. Yeah, the process turns their hands. Before starting the reno.
Yeah, the process is critical. Okay, well, we're going to give you all the documents and all the processes after this, and we'll take you through the checklist in a minute, my man. So we've got you back.
No worries.
All right, thanks for that. All right. Okay, let's crack into it. Is that Scott? There he is. Hey. What's your number one golden nugget so far, bud?
Just listening to what everyone else is saying and working out that there should be a process for this from the start rather than going, oh shit, I forgot to put this in or this wasn't in or whatever, and then going to the client, okay, now I need some extra money for this, and then going, but I thought this was a fixed price contract. What's going on?
Exactly. Yeah. Position it up front with the client.
Yeah, exclusions in your contract are huge, eh? And if you start thinking about if you actually start thinking about your contract and you start thinking about exclusions, you'll go, oh, the light bulb will go, oh shit, and you'll start getting more and more, but then they become variations because more than likely the client's going to want to add some of those in.
Yeah.
But
better service for them, better cash flow for you, and get rid of any weirdness.
And then we'll
But
up the variation.
Yeah.
As you said, if you can eliminate these variations at the beginning, you look more professional than the next bloke anyway.
Well,
Absolutely.
Yep, and allow for them as well. Let them know that, hey, what's coming potentially.
Yeah, and it's just preempting them, knowing them this may happen. And also the other thing is upselling a variation. So, for example, I don't know, it might have a pine deck, and that a nice Vitex or Quita deck picture frame with stainless steel nails is going to be a million times better.
Or screw it rather than nail it.
Screw it.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly. So you could have it, and that's the whole thing when you come down to the whole variation. What you've allowed, and that's the clarity of your contract too. What you've allowed and what the other guys allowed.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Thank you.
It's a little bit more work.
Eventually, you won't even be competing with other people.
Give me a hell yeah. Put your hand up if you can see a variations checklist on there.
Yep, I can see it.
This is, I guess we'll run through this really quickly. This is a checklist to consider when you're going through before actually, doing this, whether it's charge up or fixed price. I guess the key things to consider is it actually a variation? Is it, and have a look at your plans and contract. Russ, can you run us through any golden nuggets through here?
Well, that's probably the key. Is what is a variation? Is it exactly what you got there? Check the plans. What's your contract say? Because anything that's not in your contract is a variation.
Yeah.
If they've asked you to do it, simple as that.
Yeah.
And it could be a variation on your building, but also could be the electrician, the plumber, could be anything. Oh, can we put another hose tap in here, please? Yeah, sure. So everything is a variation. We'll go about that later because there's obviously variations checklists for your subbies as well. Briefing the foreman. The foreman's key. In our company, our foreman actually get involved with some of the pricing at the early stage. So they get to know the plans. I'm starting a new job in 4 weeks' time. My foreman has the plan. He's got to study the plan, come back to the office. He spends a day in the office and asks a whole lot of questions. So it's worth that money to spend one of your builders to go through your plan thoroughly before the job starts. And he'll do it in his own time and preempt. Because it's going to be more profit to him in the end. So he'll basically know the plan and it's very clear in our folders. They'll get our contract. In our folders, they'll get the contract and it has the exclusions down. So if I go to site and go, hey, how come you done that? And I can look up I go to the site, look at my exclusions. Oh no, that's all right. That wasn't excluded. I go back and question my QS. How come that wasn't excluded? Yes, I added it in this time. Okay, so it's all right. It's big checking amongst everyone what's in, what's out. But brief the client for the variation. You're making a sales. It's part of your sales having a variation. We all know that there's going to be a variation occur. Everyone knows, whoever does a renovation or new build, what's the most common thing that people say? Oh, it's going to blow the budget. That's the most common thing. How is that a fixed price? Is it going to keep the budget? The industry is known for blowing the budget. So by actually having the variation process in, when you do your sales pitches, and we can't actually blow your budget because it's a fixed price. But, and you'll talk about the variation process, nothing can get done without you signing it off. Your budget's your budget unless it's signed off. And if your architectural plans change from what's on site, that's a variation, nothing to do with you. And if they want to wallpaper the living room instead of just painting it. There might be a variation, nothing to do with you. Once again, it's their choice. So, you know, having that process is really key. Preempting variation is a big part of the sales pack. Check the building zones. So we're talking about jobs. You know, just don't presume that something can be done. If a client says, "Hey, can you do this?" We need to know our stuff. We're experts in that field. We need to know our stuff. You know, you could do someone might just say, "Hey, look, I don't know. I want to double glaze all the windows in my house." You know, that might be $20,000 or $30,000. So you need to get an idea of, have they got the money? Do they actually realise it that much? My mother, I did a renovation for my mother 30 years ago. She still thinks jumbo bins are $80, but now they're like 300. So it's just, sometimes it's just having a quick brief with the client so they're realistic. Do they actually know what that potentially may cost? You know, and what are the options? So that and you can do that, because you don't want to do all the process of the variation if it's not going to happen, because there is a lot of work in it. So it's just preempting that. You know, are they aware of it? Thanks, Marty. The pricing, the variations here, sub-trades, the QS, how do you price it? There's, on some of the smaller variations, our foreman might do it. Okay, say, for example, you pulled out a bath and the floor's rotten. You know, he can quickly take a quick photo, or say, look, it's 6 bits of 4 by 2, it's 2 sheets of plywood and 4, you know, we're going to, you know, 2 sheets of jib. So your foreman can probably give you a pretty good rundown of it, that your QS may price. But then all those things that add in your admin fee, your materials, your overheads, you know, travelling. A variation might only be in half an hour, but you might have to travel an hour to get there, travel to get back. Your half day is gone, and you can't send a builder to another job. So although you've done a variation for a little bit of money, it's actually cost you money. So you got to, all those things come into account. You have to really think outside the square. You know, you got floor protection, you got health and safety, you got portaloos, as Marty said, you got scaffolding, you got extension of time for your contracts. You know, your subbies, you know, your subby sends a quote into your QS or to yourself, and the client says, "Oh, can you put another PowerPoint in?" So we pay the subby because he's put the quote. You know, we pay the subby. But if your office is not connecting, whoever pays your bills and your office is not connecting to the original quote, there's no questions asked. So your subbies have to be on it too, you know, because I bet you we've all paid subbies and sub-trades out more money than their quote and never got money back in for it. Guarantee it 100%. Presenting to client, we have weekly site meetings, so our variations present to the client each week. And if we're preempting one, we might say we'll keep preempting it, it might be coming up. You know, so that's done each week. And obviously confirmation, they've got to be signed off. Rules of engagement, timelines, all those sort of things. It's on that form there. But I think the project management software forms, yeah, not all of us have project management software, but there's always a form of communication. There's always a form of written document. An email approved email can be a variation, you know, if you don't have a project management software. We've all got email, otherwise we probably couldn't do business, but, you know, anything can be, as long as it's approved and signed off.
Yep. Cool. All right. Pretty straightforward. The main thing is have a process, use a checklist. All right. Pricing a variation. Russ, what do you got? Like, are you doing these at a predetermined margin?
We're sort of doing, I actually probably can't answer that whole question, Marty, to be fair, because Peter, my QS, does it all for me. But margins, we change it from the type of work we're doing. You know, some variations are a lot more materials than labour, some are a lot more labour than materials. You know, our subbies, if our variations is only subbies, you know, a new hose tap, a new PowerPoint, some they change a little bit. But the same process is there, all the admin fees, all the project management, all that's all set, that's all just standard set.
Who forecasts the labour hours on this? The foreman, the QS, or you as the project manager?
Our foreman will. And
does that depend on how big it is? Like, it's obviously a much bigger one. You probably want all 3 people looking at it.
Yeah. So what happens is, on a smaller job, our foreman will go. Our foreman will identify the variation, and he'll contact our office, our QS, or even myself, and then depending on what the size of the job, if it's a bigger variation, our QS will go out there and have a look at it. Yeah, we're only running about 5 jobs at once, so and that time that he goes and does that is all accounted for and part of the variation.
Cool. Whether it goes ahead or not, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. Right, subbies. So obviously you need to have a contract in place with your subtrades. Allow time for them to come on site if needed. Do they charge for that? What happens if that doesn't go ahead? So do you invoice the client for that? Sign-off process with them, how they go about presenting it. Like, do they actually present it to the client if they're doing it, or do you present their work? Probably 9 times out of 10. Who else is involved? What are the subtrades? What's the timeframes on their availability? Can they actually do the variation, in the next couple of days or next week when it's needed to be done, so it doesn't impact on your guys? And how do they quote an invoice?
Yeah, so our subbies will come and do a variation. They don't charge us. Our subbies are generally, we've got pretty good subbies. They're our same subbies all the time. But in saying that, I've got my glass guy will charge us to come and do a quote. So we tend not to do that.
Yep. Sure.
We tend to pass it on to the client, saying, hey, if you want us to come around and quote that, it's going to cost you more money. We'll just go ahead and do a charge up. This is generally for reputting windows and things. We'll just go and do a charge up. Yep. So it's all about how you sell that variation or the extra that they want. The process that all our variations, our subbies won't get paid unless they won't get paid any more than the contract unless they've done a variation that's signed off as well. So our subbies will send their variation to us, and we'll put it we'll make our own custom made. I've got one to share later.
Yep.
One of our custom made variation forms, which will have our subbies information in there, and then our client will sign that off. So our client's not getting a whole lot of different paperwork from plumber, sparky, painter. Yeah, it's all under us.
Do you have a checklist on variations of the actual subtrades involved? Because if you're doing a variation in a bathroom, there could be up to 10 subtrades involved.
Yes, I suppose we don't have we could probably make one up pretty easy, but it's generally just out of experience for us at this stage. But I'm sure we could. I'm sure even our group could. Yeah. We could certainly make up a good checklist. I've got my 200-point quality control checklist, and I find that bloody handy.
Awesome.
To be honest with you, but with the most of the variations, like you say, there might be 9 or 10 people involved. It becomes pretty natural after a while.
Yeah, for sure. Charge out rate, I guess there we're taking into account, like are you charging it out just a flat rate of like $60, $65 an hour on the labour side of things, and obviously adding in everything else regarding quoting time, overhead recovery margin, project management fees, etc., or does it depend on the type of work?
It really depends on the type of work, and if some of the variations are still unknown, so we don't want to get caught out. So some of the stuff has to be done, so we'll do a charge up.
So you might do a fixed price contract, and variation might be on charge up because you don't really know how long it's going to take.
Yeah, so sometimes it charge up, and when we do charge up, we'll put our really good rates in, but we'll have rates in. We have an admin rate, so even every time we invoice, we'll have an admin rate for every, for invoicing the variation.
Yep.
QSing rate, so Peter, QS, I have a rate too. If the variation has to be part of a LBP, we'll have a fee in for signing that off as well.
Yep.
So yeah, every
cool. Step. So you also charge not just for travel and that, but also for if an LBP is required signed off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, sales. So obviously sales is all about positioning with the client, the mindset that you have going into this, and then how you actually cross-sell and upsell the variation to the client, and who presents the variation to the client for the ultimate sign-off. And are you selling the benefits of doing that, and also giving them a couple of different options that they may not have thought about before getting it signed off?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty good at doing the sell. When it comes to the fluffy stuff, like the fluffy cushions. Because when you go to a job and the client's there and you go, oh, wow, that's amazing. Imagine, Marty, imagine out there, if you had a door through there, you got this amazing view on top of this building. Imagine if you had a deck on there looking at the sky tower.
Yeah, but then we'd probably need a glass balustrade because Renee could fall over the top of that
yes,
too.
Renee. No, she has to stay there. But it depends on the variation. So we sometimes get some large variations, and it also depends on your foreman. Some of my foremen are more experienced than others. If I've got a young foreman on a job, I'll come and back him up and teach him the process. He'll run through the process, even right down to when some of my council inspections with a young foreman, I'll go and back him up and be there. They're still running the process. So yeah, it depends on the size of the renovation or size of the variation, as to how we'll go and do it. but it's really good upselling. Like, even like talking before, is a Quila deck, a pine deck. You know, what is it?
Yeah.
You know, and we've all been to places where you bought something and then you've gone down the road and you go, oh, I should have bought that. Not because it was cheaper, because it was way cooler.
Yeah.
You just didn't know it existed.
100%.
You know,
one of the biggest things is reassuring the client that nothing, whatever your minimum amount is, nothing over $500 or over $750, whatever you want, we'll go ahead without their sign off.
Yeah, and I have that in my contract, and they can choose to cross it or not.
Sure.
So at the early stage of my contract, say we have a variation. If it's under $500, we'll go ahead and do it. Or do you want to leave that in or not?
Yeah, and I guess making them aware of. Yeah. Here's an example. If this was to come up and we went ahead with it, fantastic. Here's how it would work. And if we don't go ahead with doing that variation, then the tiler might not be able to get back for 3 days. We might not be able to waterproof the shower. The plumber might not be available. So that then might hold the whole job up for an extra week. Are you okay with that? Because you don't know what their number one priority is. It might be that they need that ensuite finished, and because the mother-in-law is coming to stay in 4 weeks' time.
Yeah, so that's the thing, Marty, and that's the thing. And if they decide, say for example, just take for a bathroom example, you rip a bath out, the floor's rotten. So I've got to wait for the next day to put it back together till I've met the client, signed the variation off, and gone ahead. But if it's going to be $500 or less, or $800, $1,000, whatever figure you like to put on, just go and get it done.
Yeah, cool.
Because it's going to be done anyway. Yeah. But if we don't do it, well, then we're going to charge a half a day of mucking around doing nothing because I can't send my boys somewhere else.
Yeah.
So exactly. It's more,
Cool. Payments. So I guess smaller ones under $5,000 or under whatever amount you choose. Obviously, we want to process those straight away, get them invoiced, get that money in weekly so there's no nasty surprises. What about larger variations? Like you must come across ones on bigger renos where you might need multiple stage payments, or you need to order the doors or the windows in advance. Or
so anything that needs ordering, whether it's windows, doors, whatever you may need ordering, we'll still get a deposit. Because we got to pay our joiner, our roofer, whatever it may be, a deposit. So we'll
what do you take as a deposit? How much?
Well, we usually take 10-15%, depending on what it is. So they've signed the variation off anyway. So happy to go ahead. So we need to get a deposit. You can get more if you needed to. And then as far as paying, our company, we invoice weekly.
Sure.
Cool. So it's just a percentage of the process. It's part of the process. It's not a, we might decide, hey, we generally don't charge until we've done the variation, so we don't charge in advance, because also we want to make sure our work in progress is all in our accounts, all